So based on what I'm seeing in the charts, and again, I'm a technical trader, I'm really more bearish on Bitcoin in the near term, so over the next 6 months or so, and then also bearish on the stock market based on the Fed tapering and potentially raising rates in 2022. Now, what I am bullish on is gold. Gold, I think, is going to be the biggest performer here in 2022, and you can see this beautiful wedge pattern right here on the charts on the GLD or the gold commodity. And my guess is we're going to break out to the upside, and you should see a move up in the very least back to the highs from 2020, early 2020. And I think even a potential 3,000 price target on gold. And again, this is based on a lot of factors, but ultimately you have to look at the inflation numbers. I don't think inflation is going to go back to the 2% level. It's going to keep being a thorn in the side of the Fed. The Fed will taper, but ultimately people will rotate into gold. I do think it is the best performer in 2022.
But suppose interest rates do rise. Isn't that going to be a headwind on gold? Doesn't that mean real interest rates would also rise?
Yeah, so interest rates moving up will be a slight headwind, but the question is, why are interest rates moving up? Are they moving up because the economy is roaring and the Fed has to kind of tamper the economy or taper in that regard? Or are interest rates going up because of inflation? And again, from the input costs of labor again being the biggest input cost to a business, we know that the demand for labor is epic right now. They're having to offer bigger and bigger salaries. That eventually gets passed through to the consumer. And therefore, again, you'll see inflation being the cause of higher interest rates. In addition, let's not forget the Fed just cannot raise interest rates unlimited amounts here. Maybe 2%, maybe 2.25% is your max upside on the 10-year. And the reason for that is that the Fed at this point has to recognize the debt factor of the United States. We cannot pay, high amounts of interest on our debt or we'll go broke. And the Fed also cannot create a situation where the economy starts to spiral out of control. So I think you have upside in interest rates to 2.25%, and then that's it. And then you still have persistent inflation, which triggers that gold move to the upside.
They really cannot execute on what's expected. Even 25 basis point of hikes would be too much and unaffordable, like you said.
Yeah.
And the other side of the argument is that the Fed has more leeway. Well, the Treasury at large, the U.S. government does have more leeway than one may think. What's really going to be pressured is the corporate side and retail consumers. The government actually does have more leeway to raise rates. So what do you think? Where do you stand on this debate?
So I'm in the camp that the Fed does not have a lot of leeway here to do what they want, right? So you already see them tapering where they're removing, I think it's $30 billion a month. They should be done with tapering by March of 2022. I think you'll get one interest rate hike next year and that's it. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, the economy is starting to kind of falter and they might even have to think about additional stimulus measures. So, again, it's one of these things where, remember, when the Fed tapers, they're going to be removing a $1.5 trillion in dollars from the system just right there. If you raise interest rates, it's going to remove essentially this, additional amounts. And that is going to put in a major, depression 0.5. Now, I wouldn't use the word depression. That's a little too drastic, but I do think it's going to create a kind of a rut for the economy where unemployment will go up. And then you know what the Fed's going to have to do? Their dual mandate. They're going to have to come out with and figure out stimulative measures.
The economy will falter. Can you expand on that? Why would the economy falter?
Well, it's just, think about the kind of the drug high that the markets have been on because of all this infusion of capital from the Federal Reserve, right? We're coming off of people having more money. The government was sending out checks, interest rates at historic lows. The Fed was pumping in 120 billion a month. And now the Fed is saying, okay, we have to take some of that back, not because they want to, but because they're being forced to because of inflation surging to 8% now on a yearly basis. And so this is going to put the economy in a little bit of an issue where it's going to have to fight these lack of stimulus measures in the system.
Okay, so let's assume that they do hike by 25 basis points. So that's one rate hike, as you have predicted. What's going to happen to the bond market?
Yeah, the bond market, again, I think the max upside on the 10-year personally is 2 to 2.25%. I would be shocked if it goes up much more. And if it does, you wonder what effect it's going to have on the overall system. So I'm in the camp that, yes, I do think at some point we will break above that recent, well, it's now not so recent, but 1.75% high on the 10-year. But I do not think the Fed will want it to get too high based on the U.S. debt and based on other factors that it will influence.
Circling back to gold, you earlier in the interview call for potentially $3,000. That's more than a 50% increase from today's levels, more than 50%, because we're not at $2,000 yet. Now that puts it in almost Bitcoin territory in terms of its performance. Let's assume that happens, okay? My question is, what could possibly go up more than 50%?
So just to be clear, for my 2022 outlook, I think Bitcoin will be lower than it is currently by the end of the year. The stock market will be lower. I think gold will be higher. There's a chance that silver has a history of outperforming gold on a percentage basis. I do think silver could be that. The only concern I have is if the economy starts to slow down, the industrial side of silver may drag it down a little bit, but still silver has a great track record of outperforming gold. Uranium, there's always a chance that uranium, I think you have to start looking at uranium as a potential energy source if we're really going to move towards eliminating the climate change risk right now. So those are different ones, but I would really go with assets that are offsetting for the dollar. So if the dollar continues to get printed or inflation is high, I think those are ones. Now, I'll bring up one more point. I will say that I do think the Shanghai Composite will break out in 2022 from the short-term highs. And I do think that you will see China put the regulatory stuff behind them. And so stocks like Alibaba with their current levels, Baidu, Tencent, I do think that those will be places to go to outperform the overall stock market.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.